I'm Josh, and I'm the creator of Take Back Your Power documentary, which you can now watch on YouTube, and also co-founder of Empower Movement. And it's good we have audio, right, Nick?
We do.
Okay, excellent. And I'm here today with Nick Pineault, and Nick is a health journalist and expert. And this is an exclusive, I guess. I'll mute that. It's an exclusive talk specifically intended for Green Med Info and Take Back Your Power communities. And so Nick is going to be talking about various aspects which are extremely timely and critical in the areas of electromagnetic frequencies. So Nick is a health journalist and author. He's authored more than 1,500 articles and documents. Recent endorsements include Dr. Mercola, Ben Greenfield, and Dr. Tom O'Brien, and many other leaders in health. And Dr. Mercola called Nick's book, entitled The Non-Tinfoil Guide to EMFs. He said, I've read nearly all the EMF books out there, and the Non-Tinfoil Guide to EMFs is clearly the most practical and useful. It contains everything you need to protect yourself from this 21st century pervasive and pernicious toxic exposure. This book can literally help save your life. So that's a little bit about Nick. I'm extremely, glad and supportive of the work that he's doing, and just to have a chat with him today and to welcome all you on. So, Nick, welcome to this conversation.
This live Q&A, this conversation. I'm so excited, Josh. It's been amazing connecting with you and having Green Med Info spreading this message. I see that a couple of people in the chat are confirming that we are not alone. So that's always good. The tech is on our side. And sorry, guys, for the orange glasses. I'm trying to manage my energy, but at the same time, we can chat about those a little bit if you want. That's to block another kind of EMF also.
Definitely. Well, before we dive in, and by the way, I got mine right here, and I wear them every evening.
Awesome. Well, I'm not alone.
and we'll get into that. These are blue blockers, and you've probably heard of these already, but there's so much research to support that non-native EMFs are throwing us all out of whack. So we're here today to get the download on awareness and solutions. So this talk is specifically for both health practitioners and doctors. Nick is a teacher to doctors and practitioners worldwide, and it's also for health enthusiasts and advocates out there. So we are going to talk about a recent $25 million US government study that basically says cell phones are unsafe. And secondly, we'll talk about 5G to get the download on what is 5G, why is there all this fuss about it, and does it cause harm, and what's the deal on it. And then we'll talk about, Nick is going to give a brief overview of his new course called ELECTROSMOG RX, and then we'll open it up to questions. So questions will start in about 15 to 20 minutes from now. So Nick, before we dive in, you are committing your career really to bring awareness and solutions to EMF. So say in 30 seconds or less, if we could, tell us about why you're doing this. What's your background? Like, what got you into this?
Sure. Well, it's a long story. I'll make it very short. I'm an investigative health journalist. I have a communications background. I did a couple of years in TV as a professional copywriter. I knew it was not my passion. My passion was writing, but also I have a strong passion for the truth, Josh. That's the reality. I don't know how else to say that. And for information, for good information.
I can't relate.
Right, exactly. Well, when I find something that's unacceptable, that's a scam, for example, I found at the beginning of my career, just writing online to several thousands of people worldwide about the food scams that the food industry tried to pull off on the consumer. So I don't know, organic salmon that wasn't really wild caught, even though it said wild, it was farmed, and these kind of things that just don't make sense, where people they get their money stolen basically, and I don't like that, and I want to reveal that to the public. And that was years ago. Eventually, I got into EMF via Deborah Davis's work and her book Disconnect. I read that, really changed my life because it made me realize how credible the topic is. And when I started writing one book after another, I realized that not only is it credible, it is critical that everyone cares about what EMFs do to us and how unsafe the technology are. And then I wanted to write a book on the topic, and that was the Non-Tinfoil Guide to EMFs, which was my book published last year, endorsed by Dr. Mercola and medical doctors all around the world. So it's been very well received. And then more lately, the last year has been focused on educational training for professionals about these EMFs. So that's really my background. It's been, let's say, several years in the making now that I focus on EMFs, and now I'm really make it my life mission to educate people about them.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We're so glad that you've condensed all this information. We're going to have this conversation today. Just a notice to everyone before we dive into the next question, the comment panel on the right-hand side of the screen. And by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, go to electrosmogrx/live-GMI. So electrosmogrx.com, I should say, /live-GMI. And that will bring you to this page with the resources, with the live chat, and so on. So use the comment box on the right to, we welcome you just to post something right now. Let us know where you're calling in from, or where you're watching from rather. And use that box also to post your questions for Nick, okay? And if we don't get to your question today in the Q&A that follows this, we invite you to send it either on Nick's website or on my website, takebackyourpower.net, and we will do our best to answer your questions.
Sure.
Because that is the main purpose of this call today. So one other note in the comment box, please, how should I put this? So don't put external links to other services or products in there. We want to keep the topic on topic and focused. And so we'll dive right in here. So, okay, last week, the results of the $25 million US government study by the National Toxicology Program.
Yeah.
US government program basically said that cell phones are unsafe, right? So what's the deal on this? How significant, what did they actually say? How significant is it, and where do we go forward from here?
Yeah, well, Josh, it's important to know that this study has been mandated by the FDA in 1999. So they said we are supposed to study the cell phone effects and to prove that they're safe as the FDA on consumer products. They didn't have the capability to do so. So they asked the National Toxicology Program, that is literally the gold standard of scientific research when it comes to determining what is a carcinogen and what is not a carcinogen. That was in 99. And now, as of 2 weeks before, 2 weeks ago, or actually, no, several days ago, I think it's less than a week, the National Toxicology Program has declared that EMFs is a clear carcinogen for rats, and they've seen the increase in several types of tumors, among them heart schwannomas, and these are rare heart tumors, also certain types of brain tumors. And then they saw other things like lowered fertility and birth weight. They saw increased DNA damage. They saw different tumors of the adrenal glands and other things to different extent. But what is clear is that certain categories of exposures in these rats are a clear carcinogen. And it's important to keep in mind that originally this study was designed in order to prove without the shadow of a doubt that cell phones are safe. So the exposures that were used in the study are equivalent to what cell phone users are exposed to on a daily basis when they talk directly on the phone, especially considering the fact that PhoneGate alert the independent French testing of the cell phones near the body, not with a separation, because it's tested with a separation. When you have it right next to the head or right next to the body, well, it can go way over the NTP study that has shown that it's a carcinogen. So this is extremely mainstream information. This isn't a fringe group that did one study or someone or hearsay. This is the golden standard of scientific research who says, well, this is a clear carcinogen. And what did the FDA say right after the study was published? They said a few things that were completely I'll be extremely polite, completely inaccurate, completely false, a lie, in other words. They said, well, these findings cannot be extrapolated to human population. In other words, well, we mandated the US government, the NTP, to do a $25 million study, but it says nothing. It means nothing. So which is not true. Again, when the NTP finds something that's a carcinogen, we should aim to reduce that in humans. And the gold standard of carcinogen research is using rats and not humans. We don't want to expose humans, have them catch cancer, and then verify that it's a carcinogen. That's not how it works. Rats have a similar DNA profile as humans, good enough so we can assess that what is a carcinogen in rats is also a carcinogen in humans. This is how it's done. This is how it's done for any carcinogen, right? So this is completely false. And then the second thing that they said, well, the rats were exposed to older technologies, 2G and 3G technology. Yes. And they said, well, what this means is that cell phone users with old cell phones with 2G and 3G technologies might be harmed, but with the newer technologies, we cannot extrapolate. So in other words, 4G and 5G is completely safe. Well, the truth is the opposite, because we know from scientific research that the more pulsing, the more different frequencies and different signal characteristics that you use, and the more biological effects that you find. So it's completely ridiculous what the FDA has come back to say, even ignoring the fact that they mandated the study back in '99. So we should not take this criticism as serious. And unfortunately, it just shows you how, unfortunately, follow the money. It's the FDA cannot be trusted at this point to make decisions for people's health. What this means is that now I think we're going to move forward with this study and many other ones that came out. We're going to move forward with maybe a classification of EMFs at the World Health Organization that will be higher than the 2B we have at the moment. That is a possible carcinogen. It might be a 2A probable or a class 1 definite carcinogen. And what this means, guys, everyone listening to this, well, cell phones and EMFs from all sources, it's the new smoking.
That's right, or the new asbestos. Take your pick.
Exactly.
This is my phone. I have an iPhone, and here I have two actually adapters here to wire it. This is an Ethernet cable, and this is the lightning power, and anyone can do this. I actually have a free downloadable document on takebackyourpower.net, and on page, I think, 7 of that, it shows you how to wire your phone. So
this is great.
I'm using my phone right now actually to receive questions from the amazing Dave, our assistant. So I just wanted to mention something that you wrote about just recently. I know we're short on time. We got to get the questions quickly, but you wrote about this. You said if you go to your settings panel, let's see, I'll turn it, and under cellular, actually, you guys see that? It says Ethernet. There's an Ethernet option on the phone once you have it plugged in. It's interesting. Yeah. Bet you didn't know that. But on cellular, if you go to cellular when it's active and you switch from 4G or LTE back to 3G, the amount of exposure goes exponentially down, doesn't it? I found the same with my Cornet electrosmog tester.
It does.
So
yeah.
What this means is like exactly what you're saying. If 2G and 3G older technologies are showing harm, Nick, then 4G and now 5G coming are extremely just dangerous, and we need.
It's worse. It's worse.
It's worse.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting emails from practitioners, basically without any EMF training at all, saying, you know, I've kind of put the pieces together, and the clients and patients that I have that spend a lot of time on their phone next to the heads, because I started asking about cell phone use. The ones that spend a lot of time with the phone next to the head, their short-term memory is basically going down the tubes. So this is a very emerging crisis, and there's a huge amount of dollars and financial interest to prevent any real solution from happening, because there's so much money to be made in these gadgets and technology and the digital surveillance. So with that, I want to quickly dive in, if we can spend a couple minutes on 5G.
Sure. 5G is the next generation of signal, right? 5th generation. This is what it means. And a lot of people are confused because the 5G is also something that can be Wi-Fi, just a Wi-Fi frequency. So Wi-Fi can be 2.4 gigahertz or 5.8 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz sometimes. And this is why you see certain networks around your neighborhood that say 5G. It's not fifth generation, it means 5 gigahertz, right? So this is a common confusion. Well, one thing is sure, 5G has been activated now in many cities, and this is the fifth generation of signal. And the difference between 3G and 2G that we had and 4G or LTE, long-term evolution, is that 5G is very high power antennas, but very short distance. So mainly it will rely on a system where we need new and cell phone masts, miniature antennas called the small cell technologies every 3 to 12 homes in residential areas, and basically at every traffic light signs in downtown areas and cities. And I had this map on one of my presentations for the course of the city of San Jose, and it showed that the coverage with over 2,000 antennas in the city of San Jose would basically give a fraction of the coverage. In other words, just for the city of San Jose alone, I think we're going to need 50,000 or 100,000 new antennas to cover every street, like if they wanted full coverage, right? Yeah. So because these are small antennas that are going to beam form and follow your cell phone around, and the speed will be tremendous. No, don't get me wrong. If you're listening to this and say, well, there's nothing more than I like more than my cell phone, and I love speed. Well, you'll be served. However, there's a downside, and these are the health effects that most people are concerned about. The problem is, Josh, that there's not a single biological study that has been done on 5G frequencies, these new frequencies called the millimeter wave band, and the effects on human beings or even rats. So consider that in '99, we started the NTP study, and now we just got the results about 20 years later. Well, let's start studying 5G. And then in 2039, we're going to finally know it's a carcinogen, right? It does not make sense to roll a technology to an entire population and study it within 20 years and expose people in the meantime while we don't know if it's a carcinogen or not. How is that called in a scientific situation? Is called human trials, human subjects, experimenting on human beings. That's not acceptable. And this is really why a lot of scientists, there are multiple calls around the world, these appeals by hundreds of independent scientists and doctors who say, we do not want 5G. We should stop 5G before it's too late, and we roll it out to the entire population. We should stop for a couple of years, have biologists and the industry sit together, and then figure out the best signals to use that are compatible with our biology and that are maybe 1 million-fold safer. I think that would be feasible. However, no one is looking at it, and it's all for profits. So that's the 5G picture. And what is good is that right now, a lot of people are realizing that 5G is bad. 5G is a problem, and we're seeing in the news. I know, Josh, you're a big advocate. You follow these news. I see that in the comments from the industry. I see citizens in arms. I see this city north of San Francisco that said no to 5G, blocking the installation of these small cell technologies. Throughout the US and throughout the world, we're seeing the backlash that the industry is going through because people are extremely concerned for their health, and rightfully so. I think it's good that people are finally waking up to the fact that this might have an effect.
Yeah, and there is a lot of backlash. Everyone from one of the commissioners at the FCC, so there's a chairman and 3 commissioners. So one of the commissioners actually said that she thinks this is a heavy-handed thing that isn't going to fly with local municipalities. Speaking of the FCC's plan to force 5G on local governments without their consent. So the FCC is making a power play to remove local governments' ability to decide what kind of infrastructure goes where in their own city. So this is like even democracy on trial. And sure. Harvard Ethics has already produced a report basically saying that the FCC, just like the FDA and other agencies, the FCC is completely captured. Nick, you know this, but for our audience, it's run by corporate interests. Tom Wheeler, the former chair, is a former senior lobbyist at the CTIA, the Cellular Telecommunications Industry, and it's the same thing with the current chair. And they've actually gone on the record saying, we don't want to wait for the standards. We just want to open up the gates and encourage everyone to all these companies and their developers to just have free reign. And meanwhile, this is the same. Now, this is a key point. Recently, it's been identified on Activist Post and other websites, our website, Take Back Your Power, that these are the same frequencies, these millimeter wave frequencies, Nick, that are being used in crowd control weapons that directly affect the nervous system and the brain of people, right? I don't know if you want to get into that, but this is just bad news all around. And you see, that's not even talking about the surveillance aspect of this technology. So this is just bad news all around. Any final thoughts? Any final thoughts on this? I do want to quickly mention that if you go to ehtrust.org, they have some very positive news on this. Okay, there's literally hundreds of local governments that are pushing back, mostly pushing back because they want to keep their local zoning rights, but more and more of them are getting educated about the harms from these high frequency EMS, so 5G. So get aware on that. We encourage everyone to team up with their local governments. But Nick, do you have any final thoughts on 5G before we dive into the next subject?
Well, it's important that if you live in a city where 5G is rolled out, it's important to keep tab on what symptoms you might be feeling. And this is, unfortunately, this is a technology that's simply rolled to the entire population. And if you're feeling sick from your environment or from exposure to certain antennas, it's important to talk to other people, because we don't want these symptoms. It's invisible radiation, so it's hard to pinpoint, but and unfortunately there's no good EMF meter available at the moment to identify this exposure, and the 5G meters at the moment are not available. But it's important to keep that in mind as the 5G rollout starts. We need to say, this is happening to me, like I can't sleep because of this antenna. If we stay in the dark, if we don't talk about it, we feel shy or we feel crazy, well, it's going to be even worse. We got to speak out. We got to speak out. We got to help each other, get with other people and in the same building and see, have you guys been feeling this new antenna right in front of the building? And if so, talk to the owner, organize yourself. It is unfortunately, we live in a world where you have to do the grassroots movement in order to make politicians aware that, guys, we're getting sick from that. If you're feeling these health effects, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be a mounting reality, an increasing reality, Josh, that a lot of people will start feeling them. Among other things, sleep disturbance, stress, adrenaline rushes, heart palpitations. For 5G, it might be skin issues. It's still unclear. Blurry vision, dizziness. So of course, we're not advocating to blame everything on EMS, but it has to be a factor that you recognize, because likely your doc will not. And that's a huge issue that most practitioners are not aware of it.
Yeah, good. So I wanted to mention that there are some studies now available that have to do with 5G frequencies. And if you go to saferemr.com, safer, SAFER, EMR.com. That's the website of Dr. Joel Moskowitz at University of Berkeley. And so he's collating a bunch of science. There's 400 studies basically on EMF that show biological effect just in the past 2 years, you guys. The science on this is very, very solid, very real. Secondly, we're going to mentioning all these different links, and this is kind of a pretty intense topic. But just to kind of bring it down to ground level for you, we are going to, this is going to be an ongoing conversation. And what we're going to do, I think, Nick, if you're okay with this, is we'll send an email out to everyone that either is subscribed through GreenMed Info or Take Back Your Power, or if you haven't done that yet and you haven't got Nick's PDF, just below this video on the page to the left, go ahead and click that button to download Nick's free 9-page guide. That's going to subscribe you to Nick's list as well, and that will give us the opportunity to send you the links that we're talking about today. And in addition to receiving ongoing updates and ongoing conversation as this whole situation with EMF unfolds directly from Nick. So it's not just wireless, and it's not just 5G, it's cell phones. It's also Wi-Fi in schools, and there is an excellent documentary, Generation Zapped, and it's smart meters, and it's even the wireless devices, keyboards and mice. So I definitely recommend, as I know you do as well, to wire everything you can. So with that, Nick, I'd like to ask you, can you take several minutes and just to give us a brief preview of your course. Now, your EMF course, it's just launched as of today. This is, I haven't even seen it yet, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. But this is the second iteration of it, correct?
Correct. We launched a beta version back in the beginning of February. So the idea was to create a course, the first of its kind, that is just for health practitioners, but also for people who feel electrosensitive or those who want to go deeper and learn about EMFs. And it was very successful. We launched it, and basically in a few days, in about 4 days, it was completely sold off, and that was at the beginning of the year. So we did this beta version, and since then the feedback has been nothing short of overwhelming, and we've created a brand new course. And if I may, I have a short presentation just to talk about the course, because I think it's the first of its kind. There's literally nothing, there's no school, there's no certification, there's no program, no one talks about this in functional medicine. So if you're a practitioner, or even if you're someone electrosensitive, it might be the course that you want to consider taking. Let me share my screen for a second. I have it will be short. After that, we'll get right in the Q&A. So I want to show you here what the course is all about. Let me just double click here. Do you see my presentation, Josh? We're all good?
Yes.
Okay, so it's called ELECTROSMOG RX, and it's a 5-week online EMF course for health professionals and coaches, and also for people who are health enthusiasts and really want the best, most cutting-edge EMF information that's available. And it's a collaboration with Sophia Education. Sophia Education is the online sub-brand of Dr. Klinghardt from the Sophia Health Institute. And Dr. Klinghardt has been looking into electrosmog and the effects on human beings for the last 40 years. And he is truly one of the best healers, the best doctors. He's an MD, PhD. So this information is extremely credible, and it's really been developed in collaboration with him and with Austrian-based clinic GeoVital, and also with experts, independent experts from all around the world, including interviews with Dr. Mercola and several other EMF advocates. So basically what we want to do with that is that we want you to be able to answer every EMF question that your clients have, and every question that you might have yourself, because it's a very, very complete solution. Wants you to realize how much EMF plays a role in the mystery symptoms you see in patients or you see in yourself in day-to-day basis. So a lot of people are simply missing them because they think it's Lyme, they think it's heavy metals, they think it's chemicals, they think it's food or a lack of exercise. Sometimes it's all of them, but EMF is a big factor. However, oftentimes it's ignored. It's also for health practitioners. It's a new market that's going to be emerging, and that's unfortunate. I don't like the kind of talking about the business side of things, but in reality, if you're a practitioner and you want to differentiate yourself, it's actually stuff that will make a difference in people's life more than just another yoga training, right? I mean, this stuff is cutting edge, and it's a new environmental factor that if you learn about, you'll literally be the only one in your city talking about that stuff. And we need thousands of them. It's also a way to skip thousands of hours in personal research learned from Dr. Klinghardt. And it's also a community of like-minded practitioners and non-practitioners who are investigating EMF-related illness. So we have a Facebook group and whatnot. So just showing you around, it's 5 modules. It's taught by me, Dietrich Klinghardt, Steve Weller, Patrick Vanderberg. There's a lot of collaborators. It's about 12 plus hours of EMF education. So that's not merely, for example, an EMF book. I know there's a lot of that out there. I have one. There are great documentaries. Take Back Your Power, of course, that's something you want to listen at. Generation Zap. But then if you want to go deeper, this is really higher level education about EMFs. And it's videos, audios, full transcripts and whatnot. And it's all organized in a membership area. And of course, like I always say, we recommend downloading the course and hitting airplane mode. So, and the link for the course, by the way, if you're watching this on electrosmogrx.com/ GMI-live, you'll find the link right under the video, and you can you can click on it, and basically it's going to bring you to the ELECTROSMOG RX. A few overview of the module is EMF Basics. We talk about EMF Science. In Module 2, we talk about symptomology, so the symptoms to look for. There's even an entire questionnaire that you can use for yourself or for your patients or clients. We talk about EMF mitigation, so removal of these EMFs from the very basic steps to the advanced steps that a lot of people who are feeling sensitive need to take. And then the EMF protocol with Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt. He shares his favorite supplements to alleviate the electrosensitivity and how to support your biology, all sorts of things like grounding, like calming down your nervous system and whatnot. There are a lot of modalities that can be used to do that. So we really go through all of them. And we have an entire video just on 5G, the Internet of Things, and also the future of EMFs, because it's important to also know what's coming next. There's a few bonuses. There's occasional handouts. There's the EMF questionnaire, a few interviews with Dr. Mercola, Dr. Ben Lynch. We have Dr. Zach Bush and whatnot. A lot of bonus interviews. We have a private Facebook group for EMF-related questions, a copy of my book, and a lunch-only bonus is also 4 Q&A sessions with me and expert guests. So this is only for during the launch. So in other words, it's the next 7 days. So on November 14, the price will go up, and then people will not get access to these Q&A sessions. So it's really something that has a lot of value. We'll go for 1 hour or 2 hours each one of these sessions. One of them will be with Dietrich Klinghardt himself. So that's a lot of value. And the retail price is one payment of $597, 4 payments of $179. But we decided during this launch to scratch that price, and the price that you'll pay is $397 or 4 payments of $119. And the link, basically, you can go right under this live, and you can go there to in order to jump on board. And we would love to have you on board.
Excellent, Nick. Thank you so much for that. I was just thinking that because this whole EMF situation is just coming into mainstream awareness, and people's symptoms are increasing, unfortunately, there is no like real, university, whatever, accredited or postdoctorate or a certain course that you take. So what Nick has done is if I can just talk to the audience just for a second, is put together the best research, the best trainers. He has all this experience teaching the doctors and practitioners around the world. Also now open it up to health advocates. So definitely, if you're in position to take advantage of the course, there's a button on the just below the embed on this page on the right hand side. There's full info, and you'll see testimonials. You'll see from Dr. Tom O'Brien, a quote from Dr. Mercola, and so forth. So let's dive into the Q&A. The first question I have, Nick, is from Susan. She says, planning solar panels on roof soon. We'll locate meter and all components off the house, I guess, meaning the utility meter, off the house in a separate building. Any suggestions?
Sure. So for suggestion number 1 would have to have a clean inverter. So some inverters create more dirty electricity. That's one of the types of EMFs that you need to worry about. So using an inverter like the Sunny Boy brand, that's a German brand that's often recommended by building biology experts. And also these building biologists, if you could hire one just for a short consult, even a phone consult would be amazing. If you simply type building biology in Google, you'll find it, or the website is hbelc.org. And that's the Institute of Building Biology and Ecology in the US. And these experts might be able to also tell you about filtration advice, and to avoid this dirty electricity. Basically, when you have a power inverter, it will make the electricity like this, kind of jump all over the place instead of being a very smooth wave. And this can bring this dirty electricity into your home. So this is what I would advise, is consult with a building biologist. Maybe you'll shed $100 for the advice, but it would be tremendous. And it's a good idea to have your meter and the solar panels of the home. That's a very good decision.
Absolutely. So Nick, I just want to confirm, are you okay if the people that have signed up here using this link, or that click the free download below, can we send them, because there's a lot of links we're going to be talking about,
sure.
Right? Can we just send them an email within the next 24 hours to get all the links out in one one message?
Yeah, we can definitely. Everyone who's part of the Green Med Info, you know what we could do, Josh, is send them access to this replay, making sure that they see it. Probably, well, tomorrow we could do that, and then we're gonna have the links to everything we discussed. Do you want me to take notes, or are you doing that on your end?
I'll take notes. Yeah,
okay.
I can do that. So next question from Kamala. Can you give us the link to wire the phone for those who are not tech minded? So that, again, that link will be in that email, but it's takebackyourpower.net. You'll see a free download. That's my site. So from Dave, at what distance is it safe to live from an electricity power relay station?
Power relay station, I would say it's, if possible, at least 100 meters, I heard, is a good number. But I would be especially concerned about the magnetic fields levels, because it's pretty much like high voltage power lines. So what I would do, if you are looking to rent or purchase a home, for example, I would bring a good quality magnetic field meter on the field in front of the home and look at the ambient levels, because the problem with magnetic fields is that they cannot be shielded against very easily, especially if you're in a huge magnetic field because of a source of electricity. This goes for a utility power station, as you mentioned, or high voltage power line, or even low voltage power line, or let's say just the utility power lines that come to your home. If you're too close to the transformer, it might be a problem. So what you want to do is you want to, I would recommend for this, the Tri-Field TF2, because it's a tri-axis meter. It's of good enough quality to assess the numbers. And if you see more than, I would say, 0.5 milligauss to 1 milligauss ambient, it is high. Most building biology consultants would say under 1 milligauss is good, but for people who are sensitive and feeling symptoms, sometimes it's 0.1 milligauss. That's ideal, right? Or less. So to attain these numbers, you'll want to not be near the high voltage power line, several hundred feet away. So it really depends. It's not a cookie cutter answer, but you got to take these measurements, especially if you're about to build a home or buy a home. It's a huge decision. You might as well know that the environment is clean.
Good, thank you. So from Penny, aren't these 5G mini towers all over the UK and Europe already?
I've heard some things where people claim that the 5G antennas have been put in lampposts in different places. I think the rollout in the UK has begun, but I know that Mark Steele and other activists, I've been reading about their work. They actually won in court a kind of something against a city in the UK, where they said, well, these towers are making us sick. So I don't know exactly what's going on there. Unfortunately, I wish I had better answers for you. But if you type Mark Steele, STEELE, he's a huge advocate against 5G technologies, and he's a huge fighter. He had he basically convinced the judge that this stuff might cause health effects. So I think what he's been doing is amazing. And they are strong advocates. So I would look into their work to learn more about the UK situation, but I'm aware more of the US situation. What I can tell you is that 5G, the plan for the industry is to roll it everywhere. I mean, is the Super Bowl, where some 5G tests have been done in the last Super Bowl. It's the Olympics in South Korea that are upcoming. It's everywhere. And the next step for 5G is to have 5G from space, from arrays of satellites. So it's coming everywhere, whether you like it or not. It's just a matter of time for most countries or regions.
Yeah, I'll just add to that really quickly.
Sure.
I think a couple days ago on Health Nut News website, Aaron posted an article about the 5G test rollout in the Netherlands, and there was something like 338 dead starlings over a 2-week period. And this is actually confirmed by, so what's in that article about birds dying all around the area in which 5G test deployment was happening has actually been confirmed by somebody who I've known. He's been a volunteer for InPower Movement for the past year, and he's he's confirming that this is real. So crazy stuff. But that's why we're doing this, to get the awareness out there, and to not to put you in a place of fear at all, but to bring awareness, because awareness precedes solution. And that this 5-week course that Nick has put together is all about that. So from Janet, who are the best lawyers willing to help fight the 5G movement, and what are our chances of fighting it because of the American Disabilities Act?
I think you might have more answers on the advocacy standpoint, Josh. I'm aware of a few of them that are lawyers. Am I mistaken by saying Daphna Takover? She's exactly. So Daphna Takover. So DAFNA. Daphna is the creator of wearetheevidence.org. And she's an attorney in New York and Israel, and she's electrosensitive. She's been a huge advocate, and so she's an attorney. She probably has good resources as far as attorneys that are aware of the problem. Not all of them want to dip their toe in that water, though. It's definitely a career choice, or let's say taking these cases. It's hard. It's a choice that's controversial. So a lot of people are probably kind of steering away from these cases. But I know that that they're appearing. Josh, do you have better advice for her when it comes to attorneys in particular?
There's also, I mean, Empower Movement, which is I co-founded that with
Yes.
Cal Washington a year ago. That's seeing a problem at a very high level, and so that's using it's like a slow-moving process, because they have yet to streamline it. This liability action that you will be able to use to hold government agents and actually corporate executives liable as individuals for smart meters, for 5G, and for other harms. But in terms of like solutions available right now, I would also add Sandy from EMF Safety Network, so emfsafetynetwork.org, I believe, and she has a local firm there in the Bay Area that she is feeling confident in their proposed legal solution for California specifically. So next question from Steve Hart says, where can I get a copy of this report saying phones cause cancer? That's one of the websites is microwavenews.com.
Yes.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, Microwave News is arguably the #1 website for the news related to non-ionizing radiation. So, and the dangers. Louis Sleslin has been doing that. I mean, I might be butchering his name. Slesin, is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. So he's been doing an amazing job. He's a top journalist, has been literally writing about it for 25 or 30 years. So the information is there. He has reported tremendously on the NTP study. The entire saga of the NTP study 2 years ago, they revealed the early results who were extremely concerning. After that, they backtracked their assessment saying, oh, it's probably nothing. And then the final report got peer-reviewed, and the peer review group, and in scientific studies, peer reviewing is so important, right? So they had the people from the industry, they had independent scientists. It was really a mixed group of everything who looked at the NTP study and said, okay, well, are the conclusions reflecting the findings of the scientists? And that's a super important process to make sure that the researchers are not biased. And the group of peer reviewers increased the majority of recommendations. In other words, the NTP said, well, it might be a carcinogen, and the peer review group that's 100% independent said, no, it's a clear carcinogen. So these are the results, and everything can be read on microwavenews.com, this entire saga. But it's very eye-opening, because again, this is the golden standard of research, and there's no doubt in anyone's mind now. Unfortunately, some are trying to cast doubt on these results. But if you take it on a very objective standpoint, these results are change everything. I think at the moment they're really concerning for what we're doing to the population right now.
Yeah, For sure. So Susan asked, how effective are the covers for cell phones?
I found them to be effective. Some of them are of better design. There are two brands. I don't like recommending brands necessarily, because some people will say, oh, what about this brand and that brand? This kind of open design where you still have radiation coming out of the side is important. You don't want to use a case that completely blocks the phone or blocks the antennas, or else the phone will be forced to ramp up its radiation. And that's a common mistake, buying a cheap case. Actually, there's one study that I could find on cheap cases, just plastic cases, and most of the cases actually increase the radiation for that reason. They partially block the signal. You used to be 5 out of 5 bar, then you're 4 out of 5 bar, and what happens is that your cell phone ramps up the radiation. One study showed it's up to 10,000 times the radiation when you're in a low connectivity zone. So be very aware of that. You don't want to buy the cheap stuff. Defender Shield is a good company. I've heard good things from Safe Sleeves. That's why I use them. I've heard good things from RF Safe. I've heard good things from Pong cases that uses a slightly different category, but it's been endorsed by, I heard from Deborah Davis that they work. So I'm pretty positive that they do. However, keep in mind that if you use such a case, it's not a reason to talk on the phone on your ear. I don't think it is. I don't think the scientific data behind those is strong enough. And it's not a reason to carry it under your body all the time either. So it's just an added layer of protection in case, but you still want to use airplane mode most of the time. That would be my recommendation for everyone looking to prevent these risks.
Thanks, Nick. James asks, is there any research that shows EMF interfering with the body's insulin receptors, which has been linked to obesity?
Yes, some research about dirty electricity, for example, conducted, I think it's been cited by Magda Havis, especially from Trent University in Ontario, in which people who were taking insulin shots to control their diabetes all of a sudden needed less insulin when they use these Tetzer filters for dirty electricity. So in other words, how dirty the electricity is in your home might impact your need for insulin and might make it go up. And the main mechanism, I think, is that EMFs will stimulate your adrenaline release because it's a stressor, and then your blood sugar shoots up. So you kind of have these blood sugar spikes just from cell phones and cell phone towers and whatnot, and not just from food, right? Because every stressor, everything that puts you in this fight or flight mode can impact your blood sugar. There's also interesting studies by Nora Volkow who showed that the brain will actually increase the blood glucose needs in certain regions of the brain when you talk on a cell phone. We don't know exactly how this impacts the glucose regulations, but overall it seems very, very plausible. And I've read good things in Archer Furstenberg book on the topic, The Invisible Rainbow. That is a great read. And Archer has written about the fact that according to his research, the more EMFs we literally blanketed the entire planet with, the more diabetes showed up. So in his mind, it's one of the biggest reasons, this increase in electrosmog, that we have the epidemic of diabetes at the moment. It's not just sugar or lack of movement, and it's true that it kind of doesn't make sense that the population is not, I don't think that junk food consumption is going up, but people have increasingly problems with their blood sugar. So EMF is definitely not a factor to ignore for all of these reasons.
And just a shout out to the work of Jack Cruz. He's a leading edge researcher as well. He's a neurosurgeon, but he's amassed so much information and knowledge around non-native EMFs. And so he talks about, you mentioned the glucose. He talks about how EMFs make it more difficult, or non-native EMFs make it more difficult to get out of glucose burning and into fat burning, into ketosis. So
Yeah.
even just from a health standpoint, if you're trying to lose weight, or if you're trying to go into ketosis and you're doing a ketogenic diet, then I mean that's just another reason to minimize your EMF. So Janet asks, where's the best advocacy group? We are fighting 5G in Marin County, but need your support. Can you help us in any way, connect us with other advocacy groups?
In Orange County, good question. I would say
Marin County in the Bay Area.
Oh, Marin County. Sorry about that. I'm not aware of one in particular. However, if I can mention one of, well, there's multiple resources that I'll mention. I'll mention your work, Josh, that has been tremendous. Take Back Your Power, and also as a member of the original group of Empower Movement, to find advocacy groups. And I'll mention a third one being EHTrust.org. So the Environmental Health Trust. They are really great sources. If you email them, I'm pretty sure they will come back to you with advocacy groups. And you could also look at Physicians for Safe Tech or Physicians for Safe Technology. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of these groups. If you email them, people pass around the information. There are groups in pretty much every state now that are looking into this. So if you want to do advocacy work, whether it's on a state level, a city level, or the national level, there's if you email around these organizations, I'm sure they'll be able to help. And Josh, you can add, I'm sure you know more than me when it comes to the politics and getting involved.
Specifically for the Bay Area, again, EMFsafetynetwork.org, connected with them. So next question is there any research showing relationship between EMF and histamine levels?
Yes. So the first thing that comes to mind is Dr. Dominique Belpomme from France, who's one of the top doctors, medical doctors, who at the moment is studying people who claim they have electrohypersensitivity, EHS, or multiple chemical sensitivity, MCS. And he looks at, okay, well, instead of just trying to say it's all in their head and kind of thinking, okay, you're crazy, which is a lot of what a lot of medical doctors do, unfortunately, he says, well, let's take their blood work and let's look at real biological markers. So in 2015, he shared this incredible work in a paper based on about 1,200 different cases of patients that he saw with a combination of electrosensitivity and multiple chemical sensitivity. And most of them, a large fraction, had high histamine blood levels. So so that's one thing. So that's an indication where people who are very affected by EMFs, it looks like it raises their histamine release. And something that has been observed in the 80s and 90s, and also at the beginning of 2000s, and even more lately by Ole Johansson and his colleagues from Sweden. They have studied, for example, the effect of merely just standing in front of a computer or a TV screen. So just being exposed to not even Wi-Fi, right? Just magnetic fields and possibly some UV radiation from the cathode rays, and just being there. They took blood, not blood, but skin samples of these participants before and after, and they realized that even in healthy participants who did not feel sensitive to these screens, they got a histamine response. So the mast cells basically are responsible for this release of histamine, this allergic reaction to these EMFs, migrated to the surface of the skin, and they could really see an increase in histamine levels on the skin. So if you get rashes, or you get you feel like I don't know, there's something wrong with my skin when I'm exposed to these devices, it's a common complaint. Some people get even itching. Some people with the Apple Watch or these Fitbits and whatnot, they get rashes, and a lot of them, right? It's a known problem in the tech space. If you just tap a Fitbit rash or Apple Watch, and some people think, oh, it's because of the nickel and it's because of the metal, maybe in certain situations, but the signal itself can be literally a skin allergen. So yes, the link with histamine is pretty strong.
When I was with Sayer of Green Med Info, we were testing various devices, and we tested his Fitbit, and it's something like 50 times greater than the building biology threshold for extreme concern. So people really need to be aware of these wireless gadgets. So Lulu asks, what can you do to protect against cell tower if you live near one?
Well, the first thing I would say is to take measurements, and sometimes living near one isn't clear to me. If it's cell towers, sometimes have a more of a directional beam. Sometimes it's more of a 130-degree angle. So it really depends on the type of cell phone tower and the proximity. And the real problem happens oftentimes when there's line of sight for most common antennas. So if you live on a high-rise building and the other high-rise building right in front of you has an antenna, and literally you can stare into the antenna, usually it's a problem. But again, having this advice, this surveying by a professional building biology consultant or GeoVital Academy consultant, it's important. That being said, it's not an easy answer, and I know it's not convenient. I wish I could tell you, well, use this pendant or this chip or this magical thing and everything will be fine. But in reality, these things might help symptoms a little bit, but I don't think they're protective that much, and they're not sufficient to protect your health. So in that case, if you feel like you're being exposed by cell phone towers, the first thing to do is to have a sort of assessment. How bad is it for your environment? And then the second step would be, once you have the before, having a professional advise you on shielding solutions. You could use, depending on your degree of sensitivity and the degree of how bad is it, how exposed you are, you could use EMF blocking curtains. There are certain fabric like the Swiss Shield or the Nova fabric. There are different ones sold on different websites like lessemf.com. Or Safe Living Technology, for example, another one from Canada that ships to all of North America. These are great solutions. There are film that you can put in the window. A certain approach used by the GeoVital Academy would be to paint the entire room to create a shielded room. But again, these are solutions that cost a lot. So before investing in these solutions, and you might first want to reduce your exposure by your own devices, right? Some people only care about the cell phone towers outside and say, well, 5G and cell phone towers, and then you see their desk and there's 2 cell phones, 1 Wi-Fi router, 1 Bluetooth thing. So first reduce the sources from your own stuff, and then after that invest in a consultation with a professional. I wouldn't really advise to try to do shielding solutions on your own unless you know what you're doing, because some people just waste so much money doing so.
Yeah, and building biologists, as you mentioned, I mean, they're in, I think, every state now, or pretty much every state.
Yes.
And in Canada and other countries, I think too.
Yes.
I just wanted to add into what you said.
Yeah.
I mentioned this briefly earlier, but I was surprised, Nick, when I tested with my Cornet ELECTROSMOG device, how strong the signal is from a wireless keyboard, wireless mouse.
Yeah.
So that's something that people can, I mean, those are cost effective just to get a wired keyboard and mouse, right? That's what, I mean, I believe that that's one of the first things that somebody does to mitigate their EMF in their home working environment.
Well, Josh, I wrote my book on a wireless keyboard. So I wasn't, I mean, I was starting to get aware, obviously. Yeah. I was like, but I had purchased this keyboard. It was 100, like the new Apple one, Bluetooth, and I felt way better when I stopped using this keyboard. I use a cheap plastic thing that's $20. It broke after 6 months. I purchased another one. Like, I hate throwing things away, but it's not a huge investment, and it's important. You're typing away on this. Some people get finger pain because of that. Some people get what could be mistakenly called carpal tunnel, right? So people think, oh, it's my positioning, but no, it's inflammation from the EMFs. It's this histamine, this inflammation release. So in certain situations, and same thing can be said for my mouse. My mouse used to be wireless. I sold it. I purchased a wired mouse, and now I'm working on Ethernet cable. So I've taken the steps myself, and it's important to note, guys, you're listening to this. I'm becoming more and more known. Josh, you're an advocate. You've been for years. I learned from EMFs. We are one of the first person that introduced me with that documentary, Take Back Your Power, to EMFs, actually. And thank you for that, by the way. I don't know if I told you that, but it's really once I discovered you on the Bulletproof Radio podcast that I got into this. It was the start of something in my mind. And even with that in mind, we are human beings, so we still expose ourselves sometimes, and we do our best, right?
Yeah.
But after that, year after year, I'm getting more and more stringent, and I feel better and better when I do it. So I invested in different things and now I'm doing more advanced things. So take it one step at a time if you feel overwhelmed. But if you are very sensitive, then you want to take it more like 10 steps at a time. So depending on the degree of sensitivity and urgency, right? So I just want to recognize that sometimes it's a doom and gloom topic, but you got to take it one step at a time and replace these things. And yeah, sometimes you just switch your keyboard, and that was an important step for me. The same thing for that you mentioned for you, Josh.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you mentioned different symptoms like the carpal tunnel, the inflammation, the histamines and insulin and so forth. When you look at the deeper science, I mean, the scientific community is starting to get an understanding of the mechanism, right? And how it affects the mitochondria, how non-native EMF affects the mitochondria. And specifically with like Dr. Martin Paul's work,
yes,
with the voltage-gated calcium channels, he's identified the mechanisms by which non-native EMFs cause harm, and it has to do with the gates in the cell, on the cell walls or cell membranes, which regulate calcium ions going in and out. They get all messed up, and go away from their balanced, normal functioning state with EMFs. So
exactly.
It more and more is coming to light, and it's very good that it is. So Gerald asks, using a tri-field TF2 EMF meter, my home measures low in electrical and RF, but high in magnetic radiation, like the fluorescent lights in the microwave oven.
Yeah.
Is this a problem?
Depending on where you're taking these readings, right? If you say high levels in the middle of a room, then there's probably something wrong with the wiring itself. Or there's something causing a massive magnetic field to fill an entire room. So I don't know, when you say high, how high it is. If it's above 1 milligauss, generally you want to look at it and understand that starting at 2.5 milligauss in the D. Conley study 2017, they've seen a tripling of, and I think I'm quoting this one right, but they've seen a great increase in the risk of miscarriage. And that tells you something. Of course, a growing fetus is extremely sensitive compared to human adult, but it shows you that there's an effect at even low levels. 2.5 milligauss isn't a lot, right? The occupational exposure from ICNIRP, if I'm not mistaken, is 10,000 milligauss or something like that. It's ridiculous. So, right. So at 2.5, there's an effect. So if it's above 1, then I would recommend having a building biologist look at your stuff, or an electrician who knows EMFs. That is hard to find. Let's put it this way. But there might be some wiring errors or some things that aren't quite right in your home that create these magnetic fields. If you're in the middle of the room and you see and you can be like 6 to 8 milligauss to 15 milligauss. I've heard horror stories because of high voltage power lines, but also because of these wiring errors that might make the entire electricity of your home kind of separate the hot and the return current, and that could create a huge bubble in which you're living. And again, this is huge biological stress if you're spending all day every day in the middle of this magnetic field.
So with regard to EMFs, right, electromagnetic frequencies, we are essentially embodied in an EMF field. Our heart creates EMF, our brain creates EMF, right? Natural frequencies, electromagnetic frequencies, right? But it's the non-native EMFs that are the problem. And so just to recap here, what are these? These are radio frequencies. These are magnetic fields, which are low frequency, right? And these are also dirty electricity, you had mentioned. Now, dirty electricity, which rides on the wiring in your home or office or anywhere where there's electrical, there there's a 60 or 50 hertz cycle if you're overseas in England or Europe, but there's a 60 hertz cycle here. Could you talk about, there's a question Susan asked, what is dirty electricity?
Sure. So exactly that. So normally you have a certain frequency on the line. That's what is supposed to happen. But since the advent of different technologies, for example, the simple transformer of an iPhone, when you plug it in and you're able to convert 120 volts into 12 volts that you need for your iPhone, it does so. It's a small converter, and it does so by chopping the signal. So it uses an engineering technique that basically creates a lot of spikes on the electricity in your walls. So it's not just smooth like this at 60 hertz. Now it's all over the place, and you can detect all sorts of frequencies that we call dirty electricity on the electricity in running in your walls. The problem with electricity is that most people think it stays in the wall, right? It doesn't. If you have this plastic normal wiring that is called Romex, which is 99% of all homes, well, electricity actually goes out 6 to 8 feet from walls. So that's an electrical field. But on top of that, if there are multiple frequencies in there, let's call it chaos, additional chaos on your house lines. And what this creates is, again, biological stress. So for example, dirty electricity has been linked with an increase in ADHD symptoms in kids. They feel restless, they're stressed. It's been increased insulin needs in diabetics. And also there's very concerning links between the increase in cancer clusters and very high levels of dirty electricity in certain schools and populations. And this is the work of Sam Milham, who's a top epidemiologist. So this is dirty electricity, and how it can be remediated is through the use of different filtration devices or filters. Two companies that come up a lot in the EMF space is Stetzer, that has a special meter, and you use their filters. The other one is Green Wave. So both are good at the moment. These are things recommended by medical doctors like Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, and he sees good results. For example, he told me that with Parkinson's patients, he sees the installation of these Stetzer filters, and they calm right down. They stop shaking so much. So it looks like, again, this is, imagine a stress to your nervous system. These people with Parkinson's, they've got a broken nervous system. They cannot control their shaking anymore. They're always jittery. And now they feel a little bit calmer. So again, this is just an added layer of stress for your body.
So you mentioned Stetzer, STETZER, and Green Wave. Those are devices that you plug into the walls, and they reduce dirty electricity in those circuits. Two new technologies that have coming into my awareness, Nick, are Whole Home, are both manufacturers of whole home dirty electricity mitigation. And they both are really getting amazing results. And in fact, I think both are actually doing more and more installations for very large companies, corporations who want to save on their utility bill. So, right, so having filtering technology actually can help save your utility bill. And in addition to obviously the cleaning up the dirty electricity is beneficial for our health. So
which company is that that you mentioned?
There's two. There's SATIC, S-A-T-I-C.
Oh, SATIC. Okay, yeah.
And then the other one is actually, I believe, a Canadian company called Kratos or Kratos.
Oh, I've heard from both. Okay, I'm looking into these. That's a good idea, because again, the idea of installing 10, 20, 30 filters in every room, it might work. At the same time, it's not necessarily kind of taking care of the problem, which is that sometimes the dirty electricity can come from outside your home. So imagine even your neighbor is installing solar panels, and on your street, there's house number 1, 2, 3, and then you're the 4th. And that 3rd neighbor installs solar panel. But the electricity goes from your neighbor the dirty electricity from your neighbor to your home. So imagine it's the same thing as if, let's say if you use water, well, you want to filter out the toxins while as the water enters your entire home. It's better than just filtering one faucet. That's the same idea. So I'm loving more and more of these solutions, Josh. And one of them that I'm looking at also is a guy named Alan Marr,
Yes.
Mahher, and amdesignshealth.com, if I'm not mistaken. And his stuff looks interesting. I'm looking into it, and he's basically an audiophile engineer who is designing the best filtration system, because if you plug in very high-end speakers and headphones, if you have dirty electricity, you can hear it. You can hear a little buzzing, and he wants to remove it. So by default, he has this expertise of cleaning up the electricity itself, which also has good biological effects. So I'm totally with you, where I think the future is going to be installing these units at every home, right where the electricity comes in, at the breaker panel.
And it's unfortunate because, I mean, that's one of the downsides of smart meters, is they do produce and they always increase the dirty electricity in the home. It's the switching mode power supply within the smart meters at the head end, like you say, of your electricity system. So Susan's follow-up question was, please discuss smart meters in terms of their negative health effects and what people can do.
Yeah. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Please discuss smart meters.
Smart meters, sure. Smart meters are, what is interesting about smart meters is that there are so many reports of people who never heard a thing about EMFs, right? All of a sudden they felt symptoms. They didn't know exactly where they come from. Insomnia for some people, and the patients of Dr. Elizabeth Plord, who's the author of another book about EMF that's very amazing. She said, well, I saw a lot of patients complain from symptoms that looked like premenopausal symptoms: insomnia, hot flashes, depression, anxiety, mood disorders, you name it. And it turns out that all of these women, upon investigation, they started feeling this way after the install of their smart meter. Removing any possibility that this is all in their head, this is not nocebo effect, right? They didn't fear EMFs. They didn't even know what EMF is. It's just that they reacted so poorly to the smart meter. And I heard David Carpenter, one of the top researchers and advocates on EMFs, who said, I don't know exactly what it is to smart meters, but again and again in studies, we find health effects when they're installed. So it's a type of signal, the strength that sometimes can be tremendous, that is used, and then the pulsing and the different signal characteristics and the dirty electricity that they create. So they're installed, they're said to be perfectly healthy, which is not the case. They say that they're going to save you electricity, which is probably, well, most of the time not the case. From what I've heard from you, Josh, and your documentary, and people who are talking against this technology, it seems like the promises of smart meter have really failed citizens so far, and that unfortunately it's not in every state and in every country that you can opt out. However, do verify with your utility if you can opt out, because I think that as far as EMF mitigation goes, it's a very important step. But Josh, I'll let you talk about this. I mean, you're a smart meter guy originally, so what is exactly you can talk about the whole thing here and your opinion on the matter.
Yeah. I'll just say, I mean, there's so many other researchers and advocates who came before me.
Yeah, sure.
I did produce the documentary Take Back Your Power. So that is the most comprehensive story on smart meters. And you can watch that on takebackyourpower.net, or just go to YouTube, type in Take Back Your Power 2017. It's freely available as of several months ago.
And that's amazing. And you're too humble. Josh documentary is amazing. You got to watch it. And he opened it to the public for free. And when I saw that, I salute you for that, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we reached about 500,000 people with it and won several awards and did a couple of film festivals, but it just has to get out there. So please watch Take Back Your Power and share it. Thank you, Nick. And also with regards to solutions and dealing with your utility and getting the smart meter removed, basically many utilities have an opt-out program where you pay an extortive fee and get either an analog meter or a digital meter with the wireless supposedly turned off. This is part of a bigger story, and InPower movement is involved in this, solution of turning around this entire agenda. But in the meantime, on my website, on Take Back Your Power website, there's a free download, and pages 9 to 12 of that Reduce EMF guide are a primer for you to deal with the smart meter on your home. Okay, so the biggest thing is to contact your utility in writing and demand a safe analog meter, but there's tips on how to navigate that, and then including InPower as one of the recommended solutions. So next question is, just got here, any possibility that I can catch the whole thing replay somewhere, anywhere? Yes, Gay, at the end of this live call, I think YouTube automatically archives the call. So
Yep.
Right when this call is done, it's going to be available. You can watch it at this same link on the ELECTROSMOG RX website. Next question is, does anyone manufacture clean DC power adapters, like non-switch mode?
Good question. I've heard that I've heard some engineers modify them to make them cleaner. There's actually a discussion I heard lately. I cannot recall who that is, but that shared that it could be easily like these little, for example, just a normal inverter for an Apple charger. They could be modified for a couple of bucks, and then they wouldn't be so dirty. But it's just a matter of the technology must be competitive and so cheap. But I'm not aware of the cleaner technologies. It's a bit technical, but have you heard such thing, Josh?
Well, I know, just another shout out for SADC and Kratos,
Yeah.
CRATUS. They can deal with the dirty electricity problem that's caused by the switching mode power supply. I also heard I had a Dutch engineer friend, and he recommended a company called Danfoss in Europe, DANFOSS. So can't say anything more about that.
Okay.
Next question from Susie, who is doing research about folks like me living post many MRIs with gadolinium poisoning. And she wants to know if anyone is investigating this.
Good. I've heard about that a little bit in the ELECTROSMOG RX group, but I couldn't comment. I'm not aware of the issue enough. Do you have names in mind, Josh, who studied this type of poisoning? I know it's a huge issue.
I don't know, to be honest. I would just recommend, Susie, maybe lead the way in research and let us know on that. Kamala asks, are your glasses protective, and if so, where can I get them?
Oh, sure. Well, these glasses are from a company called Raw Optics, RA Optics, plural. And this is a company started by Matt Maruka. Matt is a very special guy. For starters, I met him sooner this year. I think he's only 18 or 19-year-old. And he's a young entrepreneur and really interested in health and really healthy, amazing guy that's young and with a lot of vitality and open-minded and the kind of maturity that I wish I had at his age. It's incredible. So he created this company for blue blocking glasses. So they are protective because I'm exposed here to artificial light. And even if there's not a lot of it in this room, it will disrupt my sleep tremendously, because artificial light, just like cell phone signals and these EMFs, it disrupts your melatonin hormone. So it's something where, let's say if I remove these glasses, just to make a point, well, my eyes are picking up the blue light spectrum here, and it will stimulate my brain to say, well, it's noon right now. So it's kind of a type of circadian effect on your body, where it will disrupt your sleep, and then you'll be the eyes wide open at 3 a.m., right? So for a lot of people, what they realize is that if they wear these as they work late, like I'm doing right now, it's 19 p.m. In Montreal right now. Well, you sleep better. I will go. I have a webinar. Imagine I'll finish working at 11 p.m., but I'll wear these still, and I'll be able to go to sleep almost immediately. Whereas if you're overstimulated, you're watching TV, you're watching your devices, normally a lot of people just have a hard time falling asleep. So that's really the idea here. And it's not just because I want to look cool. I don't think it looks that professional, and I hesitated because I want to show my best side, and I put my shirt on, and I trimmed my beard. But after that, I thought, well, I should tell people, I should show that I walk the talk, and I want to wear my glasses at night because it's the healthiest thing to do. And the more people wear those, well, the more normal it's going to be. It's like for EMFs, right? The more we talk about it, the more normal it's going to become.
Yeah. Okay, you just tipped the scales, and I'm going to put mine on for the rest of the call here.
Awesome.
I got this fluorescent light on too. It's just annoying. I hate having to have this thing. But no, I'm waiting, honestly, like I'm waiting for there are new lenses that are actually clear, and they apparently are tested to remove the blue light as well. So that's kind of on my, hopefully in the near future.
Interesting.
Yeah. Have
Keep
you heard
about those ones?
Yeah, I think they're around $130 the last I heard. These, I think, are around 30, right?
They're on the cheap side, but you can also invest in those with strength in them. So a real lens. I have contacts on, or else I wouldn't be able to read on the screen. So I do have to have this combo in my case.
So there's some questions about what are the companies and what are the links. We will, within the next day or so, we're going to send a list, an email with all the companies and all the links that we mentioned in this. You need to opt in to Nick's email updates, and you do that by downloading his free guide that's just below this on the left-hand side.
Exactly.
Just download that guide, get on Nick's list, and then we'll send you the spelling names and all the links and all that stuff.
Correct.
Next one is from Blue Dolphins Music. Do grounding techniques help to alleviate exposure to EMFs?
Yeah, simple version is yes. Grounding or earthing, the fact that you're connected to the earth, in scientific research, especially since the early 2000s, James Oshman and Dr. Gaetan Chevalier and a lot of other researchers have looked at the effects of grounding and found that it really restores your body natural electrical circuits, so to speak. Among other things, it will, for example, if you have been exposed to EMFs, and one thing EMF does is make your blood clump together, or your red blood cells clump together. That's called a rouleau formation. If you're grounded, normally you see a reduction in this happening because it restores your red blood cells' ability to stay not clumped to each other, and that's called the zeta potential. The zeta potential is how there's an electrical force which basically makes the red blood cells repel. Imagine in your blood, they kind of stay afloat, right? So that's something that's proven by science now. That being said, the best place to do this grounding or earthing is in nature. Yes. That's tremendous, right? So by the sea is amazing. Swimming in a lake, swimming in the sea, walking in the forest. The wet grass is good. However, some people in the EMF space are wondering if there are more harm than good if you're grounding, walking barefoot in an environment where there's a lot of running current in the earth, stray current, or high voltage power lines that are buried, etc. So it is a complicated question. I would say when it's used in nature, it's a definite yes, this grounding earthing. And a lot of people who are suffering from these EMF related symptoms, they feel tremendous when they ground, right? It really alleviates their symptoms.
And grounding in the morning too, especially that Jack Cruz talks about.
Yes.
Watch the sunrise. Speaking of getting your circadian rhythm and getting healthy light into your body in the first part of the day as the sun comes up, it is life-changing. I live near Seattle, and so we had a clear week around 3 weeks ago in which it was sunny every morning. So I actually got, the sunlight and the sunrise, and it just invigorates your day, and your body just feels better. So these help to reduce the non-native EMFs coming into your eyes and your brain and your nervous system, and the other part of it is getting more natural light. The sun is our friend. And okay, so next question is, what about all the Wi-Fi super tech stuff in new cars? Any research on this type of damage?
Well, the Wi-Fi, it's in new cars. There's so many different options of Wi-Fi. There are Wi-Fi sensors for collisions. There's the semi-autonomous cars and autonomous cars that have so many different signals in there to assess, again, collisions, other cars and whatnot. And then there's the Bluetooth option in your dashboard that can allow you to connect to your cell phone that most of the time is on. Even if you don't connect your phone, it's emitting unless you turn it off manually. And then there's another thing that's added, an added layer of radiation, which is the LTE 4G hotspots available in new vehicles, especially the GM vehicles that I found personally, but it's probably all vehicles that are on the higher end and that come equipped with a lot of options. And what is that? Well, it's essentially a Wi-Fi router that's right in your dashboard. So that way people in the back seat have Wi-Fi. The problem is proximity to your head. Again, you wouldn't, if you don't want to spend time near your cell phone, well, you have a Wi-Fi router, right? Right 1 foot from your head, 2 feet from your face while you're driving. If you have long commutes, it can be an extreme problem, very bothersome for people who can feel it. And if you can feel it, well, it's still taking away your good health via just oxidative damage and overall making you age faster than you should and feeling more fatigued and more and just more depressed, and everything is kind of blunted in your health if you're exposed to this 24/7. So the problem is that these things are not necessarily easy to turn off. You would need to go to your car dealer possibly, or sometimes the option to turn it off is inside the dashboard, but not always. So I just hate it when I have to rent a car to go to my parents in Sherbrooke, 2 hours east from Montreal, because I always ask the clerk, do you have a vehicle without these hotspots? And they stare at me. They're like, yeah, what are you talking about? and now the clerk, though, after a couple of times, and that shows you that eventually there's progress, she's convinced now that EMFs are a problem, because I told them, well, turn off the cell phone and the Wi-Fi at night, and they slept better, she and her husband, even though her husband didn't believe it at all. So now they're on board. They're like, oh, well, this is a problem. And now she sees me, she's like, okay, I've got this vehicle without Wi-Fi in it. So she recognizes that now. And who knows, maybe in the future it's going to kind of be an option when you rent a car or when you buy a car, like not having these signals. Another thing I'll mention is also hybrid or battery powered electrical vehicle. It can be a huge problem because of the magnetic field, the dirty electricity, the electrical fields. So I've heard reports, and that's something that's not that uncommon in EHS, is people start feeling sick after they purchase such a vehicle, because just because imagine that EMF is an allergen, right? You get a little bit and it's okay, but you get a little bit more inflammation. You get a moderate amount and you start feeling some symptoms, but then eventually it stacks up and your body starts mounting an attack against the offender. So when it comes to EMF, sometimes the bucket is overflowing. So people start feeling symptoms, whether it's a smart meter is installed and now they feel symptoms. And now they don't feel well in their car because it's hybrid or it's electrical. So it has to be taken with a grain of salt. Doesn't mean that you have to like destroy your vehicle or sell it tomorrow morning. However, be aware that if you don't feel well in your vehicle at the moment, there might be a reason related to EMFs and maybe to the new car smell and the chemicals, but maybe to EMFs. So do look at the options inside your dashboard and try turning off the signal. And what I can tell you is that there's a video I saw from a German study or German TV show that showed a clear difference in brain waves and a concentration ability in drivers when they were exposed to a hotspot in their car. So I'm trying to have this video actually repurposed for my YouTube channel and translated because it was just amazing. Like they've literally hooked the person up and could see the difference in like the concentration ability drop way down. And it also shows you that you shouldn't be talking on the phone while you drive. Just being you're not concentrated on the road because you're talking and thinking. And on top of that, the signals themselves, whether it's Bluetooth or a cell phone or anything else in the Wi-Fi hotspot, it will make it more dangerous for you to drive around.
Yeah, for sure. What about placing space blankets made with aluminum between my blankets and under my mattress to protect me from EMFs while I'm sleeping? I'm seeking cheap solutions. What are people can do to further reduce? So yes, I totally agree that with that employee at the car rental place, one of the best things you can do if you're just skeptical, if you're just like, I don't know if it's any differences, turn off the Wi-Fi at night just try it for like a week, right? And minimize your exposure. Phone in airplane mode, absolutely, and put it, even if it's, I mean, I like to put my phone in the other room on airplane mode with the location services turned off, just no EMFs, right? But what are some additional things that people can do to mitigate what EMFs when they're sleeping?
Sure. Well, when it comes to the space blankets, I'm not aware if they are really protective against radiation. I don't know what they're made of exactly, so I would need to test them with a meter. What I can tell you is that certain things like aluminum foil have been shown to be to dampen the signal. So what I do is when I travel, for example, I traveled last weekend to Las Vegas to give it a presentation in front of 350 health practitioners. And I was stuck in a room with this Wi-Fi box that was glued to the wall, and it was always on, and the plug wasn't even visible for me, so I couldn't even unplug it. So I basically wrapped it in tinfoil, several layers, and then the levels dropped, I would say 80%. And it was still bothersome for me. Actually, I was trying to work near that thing without even Wi-Fi on, but it was still emitting, and I felt brain fog coming up. So I had to move away from it. And about 8 feet from it, I felt better. I felt way more productive. So even in my case, I'm slightly sensitive. Unfortunately, in the last 2 years, I've gotten a little bit worse, even though my health is better. So that's very bizarre to me, but I cannot exactly, like when I work on Wi-Fi, sometimes it's okay. And I try to avoid it as much as I can, but sometimes I'm forced, or I'm in an airport and I don't have an Ethernet cable and whatnot, but I feel brain fog coming up, and that's just unfortunate. But tinfoil is a possibility, and that's where the kind of joke and very anyway, this entire myth of the tinfoil hatter people comes from. It's because it's really reflective of microwave radiation. Other things for the bedroom, I would say turn off the circuit breaker at night. That's something I do. That's something a lot of people do. It will reduce your exposure to some dirty electricity and electrical fields. And then again, if you track your sleep and you're aware of these things, most people they get deeper sleep when they turn off the electricity. And it seems like an extreme step, but I mean, it's just a switch, right? So you just turn it off and you don't think twice about it. If you saw a professional building biology consultant, they could take measurements and show you exactly which breaker you need to turn off in order to reduce your electricity exposure at night. And that's even better, because sometimes you might be turning off the one for the bedroom, but maybe the living room is wired through your bedroom, through the ceiling or the floor or the wall. So sometimes that's an additional reason to see a building biology consultant in my mind.
Great, thank you. So we just got about 5 minutes left, maybe 2 or 3 more questions. Nick has another interview. Nick, you're like the hardest working man in health advocacy right now. You're doing the interviews and all kinds of stuff online and appearances and talking to doctors. And thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And at the moment I might be, but I'm happy. Honestly, I don't, it's very bizarre. Like at this moment, I feel so energized, and I think it's you guys sending me this great energy, and you, Josh, organizing this. It's incredible. I'm going. I've been talking for since 3:30 this afternoon. Oh my God, it's been like 5 hours. But let's go. I have a webinar after that with some health professionals. So let's keep going for 5 more minutes and answer a few questions for you guys.
I got a date with my daughter. So we got a question here, a follow-up with regards to the glasses talk. Can you put yellow plastic cover on the computer? Would that have the same effect? No, I don't believe it would have anywhere near the same effect.
Yeah.
And because it's not rated, it's not shown to remove the blue frequencies is my answer. I'll get your thoughts as well. But I just want to mention there are softwares that you can download, like applications you can download. One is called Flux, and I believe another one is called Iris.
Iris, that's right. That's the one I use. Yeah.
Okay. And would I add anything to that?
No, really. If you're looking for a real screen blue blocker, I would literally find something of highest quality, and that says there's a report that shows this removes blue light, right? Not just a plastic thing where it seems like it removes blue light. You gotta have really an analysis of which spectrum of light is blocked. That's the case for these glasses. There are a lot of good brands of blue blocking glasses nowadays. If you see this very orange tint, it means that it blocks more generally, but not always. And I've learned too, like you, Josh, that in some cases you might have something transparent that blocks a lot of blue. So it's a bit deceptive. You really want to look into the technology. And for these things, it's like investing in a quality EMF meter, guys. It's an investment where you don't want to purchase anything off of Amazon that's $36, or else it will give you the false impression that you're doing something good. So sometimes you have to invest. So whether it's glasses or EMF meters or doing something for your screen, it's a great step in the right direction. But you want to make sure that you look at what the brand or the product claims, and that these claims are actually backed up by research, by the testing results.
You know, I just want to add on what you said about the testing, the EMF testing devices. That for me, I mean, I've used CoreNet devices, have been my kind of go-to device of choice since like 2012, I think. And the latest version of the Tri-Field ED88T, I think it is, it's like under $200. I think it's $169 free shipping from a company called Red Meters. And I've just found it to be one of the best things you can do, both for your own health and, you know, mitigating EMF, seeing how high the radiation is, whether it's magnetic or radio frequency, but also to show people visually, right? And these meters also have like an audio, so you can actually hear what it sounds like. It translates it into sound. So these CoreNet and other similar brands, Safe Living Technologies has a new one that's very economical as well. Highly recommend them. So radmeters.com, and we have a link from the Take Back Your Power shop as well. So Aaron asks, been using Bluetooth headphones for a long time with my phone in my pocket. Recently noticed I have zero libido. Is it likely it's damaged due to EMF RF?
It could be affected, yes, for sure. The number one fertility expert at the Cleveland Clinic, this is extremely mainstream medicine, says you should not put a cell phone in your pocket. That's his professional opinion. He's an expert in fertility. I'm not, but when you look at scientific research, there are several reports, several meta-analysis that look at dozens of studies on the topic that each conclude that sperm damage is created by these EMFs, and sperm DNA damage, reduced morphology, and all sorts of sperm quality related things. Also indications of testosterone drop in rats. So there's strong indications that this impact your libido, yes. There are other things in life, like the way you eat, your sleep, your circadian rhythm. All of these will impact your libido, right? It's a hormonal balance is a very difficult thing to attain in this day and age of stressors, I would say. But it's definitely something you want to eliminate and rule out as a factor. It's definitely not something that's going to serve your libido to have something blasting away at your groin area.
Yeah, for sure. Pat asks, is there, and let's call this the last question. Sure. Is there any literature regarding EMF sensitivity provoked by metal implants? I need proof to approach practitioners?
By metal implants triggering, so let's say a hip replacement, right, or something like that. I've heard, I haven't seen any research on that, but I've heard from some researchers that it might be an issue, especially if it's bothering you and especially if it's near a cell phone or a source of electricity. It can act as an antenna in the body. What I heard from metal in the body is especially metal in the mouth. So nickel or these 50% mercury amalgams that they call silver fillings. They've been shown to leach more toxic chemicals into your body and into your mouth when exposed to cell phone radiation or just ambient electrosmog. So if you have those in your mouth, consider that you're more at risk to develop these sensitivities, and that the electrosmog environment we're in right now, it makes any metal that you have in and out of your body a little bit worse, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Klinghardt talks about that quite a bit too. And when I was it the last time or maybe a couple times ago that I saw him, he was basically it's so simple. He was explaining how the metal in your body acts as an antenna, right? Whether it's in an implant or whether it's even from, geoengineering, whatever is happening in the atmosphere and the aluminum particulates in the air and different things, or from, vaccinations, right? With aluminum being a main adjuvant and different things. But the metals act as an antenna, so it's a really good idea to detox, do metals detox, and things like chlorella I've found, and things like cilantro, and there's also blood work you can do, right? Chelation blood work. But any other thoughts as far as that, like from the health side, Nick? How do you do, or how would you recommend to mitigate EMF harm just from the aspect of food and or supplements?
I would recommend a few things. You mentioned them, using binders and making sure that you're reducing the heavy metal load. That's an entire protocol. So working with functional medicine practitioners who are aware of how to reduce these metals. It looks like people who have high heavy metals in their bodies, whether it's in the brain or their blood or in different parts of their body, whether it's lead or nickel or tin or mercury, a lot of people are reporting higher sensitivity to EMF. So that's the heavy metal load. And Dr. Klinghardt also has a colleague that is specializing in that, and that reports the same thing. And there's also different foods that you want to use that are high in antioxidants. Among them, any cruciferous veggies, any green tea, for example. Even, well, if you use organic coffee, that's a good thing. So all these different foods that are high in antioxidants will support your body's ability to mitigate these exposures. So it's always a good idea to have those berries, blueberries, and I mean, it's not like I would personally invest in, like, there are superfoods that are so expensive, right? You purchase, like, I don't know, a acai berry drink at $25 a liter, and I don't think it's that worth it. You got to really pick and choose. But some supplements that I've heard good things about is resveratrol, any supplements that will raise your mitochondrial function, like CoQ10. Some people use NR, so that's a type of B vitamin that raises mitochondrial function. There's a lot of them. You can play around with them. Curcumin is another one but there's no clear-cut answers on which one is the best when it comes to electrosmog. I know that Dr. Klinghardt, you mentioned a few of them. He uses a mix of cilantro. He uses green propolis. That's all of these are from his brand BioPure. And the third one he uses is rosemary extract for, again, the antioxidant effect. So a combination of these three, along with chlorella at night to detox the heavy metals, seems like it is what I would recommend his patient, but that's not that alone. It's in conjunction with removal of electrosmog, and then heavy metal detoxification is also a huge part of his practice.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Nick, on behalf of our audience, I just want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today and for sharing some of your deep reservoir of knowledge about EMF with us.
Sure, my pleasure, Josh. And everyone, thanks so much for being here. It's been amazing. We've had hundreds of people tuning in. And if you're listening to the replay, well, make sure to look at the page we have for you at electrosmogrx.com/live-GMI. And at the bottom, you'll find two things. You'll find a special guide that's for health practitioners and the public alike. It's free. You can download it, and it will show you the top symptoms of electrosensitivity. You can also learn what the few steps we talked about to protect yourself and much more. So it's really a simple guide that you can share around if you want to spread the word. It's really beginner level understanding. You'll also hear about the ElectroSmog RX 5-week EMF course that's there. It will always be there. There's a special price at the moment until November 14 if you want to look at it. If you click there, you'll learn about the course, and you'll see what is inside, and I hope you join us. It's something that is great for health practitioners, and also we have individuals who are health conscious and who are simply themselves feel these EMF related symptoms that have taken it, and they love it. There's also a Facebook group included in there that's very selected only with members of ElectroSmog RX, and the participation is amazing in there.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everyone. Have an excellent night, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.